Welcome back. You're watching Credlin with Chris Smith. Federal law enforcement is set to be handed sweeping new powers to take the fight to terrorists, drug traffickers and pedophiles online. The Federal Parliament's powerful Intelligence and Security Committee has backed legislation which will see the AFP and the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission given the green light to conduct so-called offensive cyber operations against criminal networks operating on the dark web. Liberal Senator James Paterson is the chair of the Joint Committee. He joins me now from Canberra. Senator, the dark web is this evil sewer of the internet. I've never been on it. I've never been exposed to it, but it's where the worst of the worst criminals operate. Why does law enforcement need additional legislation to go after the worst of the worst on there?
Chris, thanks very much for having me on. For your viewers at home who probably won't be familiar with the dark web, it is the part of the web that is not obvious when you just go on Google or you use your normal apps or devices. It's not the surface web, it's part of the web that needs usually a special application to find it. Now, despite that, probably your 14-year-old son or grandson could work out how to download that and get on there if they wanted to, and that's one of the scary things about it. It is accessible to people who are looking for it. And on there you will find drugs, guns and unfortunately a significant amount of child exploitation material. In the first half of 2020, the AFP tracked a 164% increase in traffic on the dark web in Australia compared to the first half of 2019. That's a significant acceleration of a long-term trend. But it's very difficult for law enforcement to get on there and prevent this crime from occurring because it often uses encryption or anonymisation technology that allows people to obscure who they are. The committee's been referred a bill called the Surveillance Legislation Identify and Disrupt Bill, and it would give the AFP and the ACIC, our Criminal Intelligence Commission, 3 new warrants. One is an account takeover warrant, which would allow them, when they've identified someone who's participating perhaps in a child exploitation ring or a terrorist or a bikie gang, to take over their account and allow them to get access to that ring and observe it and potentially prevent crime from occurring on it. The second is a network activity warrant, which would allow them to get into some of these groups and observe what they're doing for intelligence purposes and then to act upon it. And the third is a data disruption warrant, which actually allows the AFP to get on there and break apart some of those groups using technical disruption activities if need be. And that offers a good hope that perhaps some of the child exploitation activities that might be in progress can be effectively stopped and people can be denied access to them.
It's quite shocking to know that we don't have the power to do that right now, and shocking to know that the dark web has been operating for well over a decade and a half, maybe even 2 decades, and it's been left to run under its own steam without attraction scrutiny or anything like that and get up to all the evil you've spoken about.
Well, technology evolves rapidly, Chris, and our laws often struggle to keep pace. We write laws for the technology that exists today, but we can't anticipate what that's going to be in the future. The Telecommunications Intercept Act, for example, was written in the 1970s when the interception that needed to take place was between 2 landline devices. And obviously, the people who were writing the law at the time would never have envisaged encrypted, closed network criminal apps that allow criminals to obscure all activity from law enforcement and allow them to evade that.
Why can't we simply go for the jugular here and shut down the dark web altogether?
Well, it's not so straightforward, Chris, from a technical point of view. It doesn't have a physical location. It's not a server you can just turn off. It exists, it's out there, and there's nothing you and I can do to stop it. It's true, though, that our intelligence and security agencies have had great successes in disrupting activities on the dark web just outside Australia's borders, because the Australian Signals Directorate, which is our offensive cyber agency and our agency that collects signals intelligence overseas, is legally prevented, and for good reason, from operating within Australia's borders. And so it can disrupt activity that identifies offshore and overseas, but has never been able to do that onshore. And so we've given the AFP the power to do that here in Australia because they're a law enforcement agency and that's appropriate. And the AFP can seek the assistance of ASD in technical matters if it needs it to disrupt those activities here in Australia.
So are you recommending extra safeguards to ensure Australian civil liberties are not unfairly breached in this investigative process?
Yes, we are, Chris. We think these new powers are justified, but they certainly are novel. It moves the federal police into a new realm of activity, and we believe appropriate safeguards and oversights need to come with that. We believe more robust parliamentary oversight is necessary, independent oversight is necessary, and the bar that the AFP and the ACIC will have to clear in order for them to be granted a warrant should be sufficiently high and should be targeted at sufficiently serious conduct. We don't want these sort of powers for being used against more trivial forms of conduct. We want it to be reserved for the most serious conduct, and that I think is the government's intent, and that I think is the AFP's intent. They're very clear in their explanatory memorandum associated with the bill that this is about child exploitation rings, terrorists and very serious drug traffickers and other serious crimes like that.
Yeah, it's upper level evil, I tell you. I want to move to another significant development in Canberra late yesterday. Foreign Minister Maurice Payne has unveiled new Magnitsky-style laws to slap sanctions and travel bans on human rights abusers and corrupt foreign officials. Senator, these laws have been a long time coming. Will the Morrison government fast-track sanctions on individuals and entities linked to the CCP's genocide against the Uyghurs as well?
Chris, I've been campaigning for these laws for many years because Australia's existing autonomous sanctions regime is inadequate. It's clunky, it's out of date, and it needs to be updated. And I think we should bring our sanctions standards up to the standards of the United States and Canada and the UK and others. And we can do that by adopting Magnitsky-style sanctions. What that will allow us to do is to individually sanction and target for personal financial consequences, visa bans and other tools, corrupt officials, human rights abusing officials, and crucially in the Australian context, also people who threaten our national security, for example, by cyber attacks. So wherever they are in the world, whether it's China or Russia or Belarus or Saudi Arabia or anywhere, we'll be able to use these powers to target and sanction them and make sure there's a personal cost for the officials involved in this, and that might deter them from what they're about to do.
OK, quickly, Malcolm Turnbull has called for a review of his own foreign interference laws. Of course, these laws have been used to harass former PM Tony Abbott for speaking at a Conservative conference. Former Foreign Minister Gareth Evans has also been targeted. Do these laws need changing?
The Intelligence Committee is just about to launch our inquiry, and we're going to look at this very closely. I think these are very important laws. What they require is if you are a foreign government or entity and you want to influence our public debate, you have to do that in an open and transparent way, not a covert way. But we need to make sure it's working. We need to make sure everybody who should be on the list is on the list, and that people who don't need to be on the list are not being harassed to be put on the list. So we'll be conducting an inquiry. I'm welcoming submissions from Malcolm Turnbull or anyone else who'd like to make a contribution.
OK. Interesting issue, that one. Senator James Paterson, thank you very much for your time on Credlin.
Thanks, Chris.
Good on you. I would have thought you could just put a virus in the dark web and blow the whole thing up and everyone else attached to it. But anyway, I want to bring in an important